In the mid-1990s, research by the CDC and Kaiser Permanente uncovered a hidden factor that profoundly affects the course of human life. This factor isn't a chemical or pollutant, it's childhood trauma. Early adversity, they found, dramatically increases the risk for 7 out of the 10 leading causes of death in the United States. At high levels, this exposure shortens the average lifespan by as much as 2 decades, disrupts brain development, weakens the immune system, alters hormonal balance, and even affects how our genes are read and expressed. Yet, despite these alarming correlations, most doctors today are not trained to routinely screen for it, nor are they taught how to integrate trauma-informed care into their practice. To understand why trauma has such power, we must recognize that it's not about a single bad experience. Trauma is the residue left inside a person after severe or pervasive threats have altered their physiology and emotional landscape. A failed test or lost sports match doesn't typically cause trauma. Instead, trauma stems from environments where a child endures abuse, neglect, or a parent's mental illness or addiction. Conditions so stressful that they become embedded in the body and psyche. According to Dr. Gabor Mate, a renowned physician and best-selling author, trauma is not the event itself, but the wound that forms within. Like scar tissue that grows rigid and prevents further growth, trauma constrains our capacity to adapt, develop, and connect with others. It distorts our basic emotional blueprint, turning what should be a flexible, evolving personality into a system locked into survival mode. When children grow up amid chronic stress or fear, they live in a biochemical climate saturated with cortisol and adrenaline. Such an environment sets off a chain reaction in the developing brain. Overactive stress circuits make it harder to learn, focus, and regulate emotions. Hormones governing mood and immunity fall out of balance. Over time, this unrelenting internal pressure can lead to conditions like depression, anxiety, addiction, and even physical illnesses such as heart disease and autoimmune disorders. Modern research shows that trauma can turn the genes that control inflammation on or off, demonstrating that adversity can leave molecular signatures that persist well into adulthood. A child's DNA isn't changed, but the way it is read and transcribed is. One might expect that medical professionals would routinely screen for such a powerful determinant of health, yet the healthcare system often overlooks it. Doctors are rarely taught to ask, "What happened to you?" Instead, they ask, "What's wrong with you?" This symptomatic approach can lead to endless treatment of the aftermath, chronic pain, high blood pressure, substance abuse, rather than addressing the root cause. Recognizing that emotional wounds affect the body as much as they affect the mind is a necessary step toward more effective, comprehensive care. Dr. Mate and other trauma-informed experts remind us that vulnerability is essential for growth. In nature, whether it's a plant reaching into soft green soil or a crab molting its shell, growth only occurs where there's flexibility. Similarly, human beings need the freedom to feel, to love, to hurt, and to heal. Trauma, however, often forces us to harden ourselves, closing off the vulnerable parts that allow us to learn and adapt. When we shut down vulnerability, we lose our capacity for emotional expansion. Without acknowledging our pain, we may find ourselves stuck in patterns that served as survival strategies in childhood, but now limit our relationships' creativity and happiness. This dilemma is worsened by the fragmented nature of modern society. Over many generations, we've drifted away from communal child-rearing, from the presence of elders who transmit wisdom, and from traditional rituals that honor life's transitions. Children need unconditional acceptance, emotional responsiveness, and an environment that respects their innate curiosity and playfulness. Yet, in many communities, parents are isolated, working long hours and managing stressors alone. Children face academic and social pressures that often force them to suppress their genuine emotions. Without even realizing it, we reward stoicism and penalize vulnerability. We value performance over authenticity, competition over cooperation, and appearance over essence. The result is a culture that normalizes stress and overlooks the silent injuries carried within. All of this helps explain why mental health issues are soaring. In recent years, more than 50 million American adults have experienced a significant mental health episode in a given year, and youth mental health challenges, from anxiety and depression to ADHD, are on the rise. Millions of children and adolescents take medications that alter their mood or focus, sometimes receiving multiple prescriptions before adulthood. Obesity rates have climbed, carrying with them a host of chronic illnesses. These problems are not just personal failings or random misfortunes, they are often symptoms of a broader environment that fails to meet fundamental human needs. We face a situation where we treat end results but seldom address the upstream causes. Indigenous and ancestral cultures, by contrast, have long understood the importance of community, connection, and nature in healing trauma. Traditional ceremonies, sweats, dancing, chanting, and storytelling serve as communal medicine, helping individuals integrate painful experiences rather than deny them. Rituals, honoring birth, death, and the transition from childhood to adulthood have historically provided frameworks for understanding suffering and restoring balance. In these contexts, healing is not simply about one person's pain, it's about harmonizing the entire community and reinforcing the bonds between generations. By acknowledging sorrow collectively, societies can transform wounds into wisdom, ensuring that trauma does not fester in silence. In the Western world, many are now rediscovering the need for safe spaces to confront pain. Therapies like EMDR, somatic experiencing, and trauma-informed psychotherapy help patients integrate their experiences. Mindfulness practices encourage individuals to feel emotions in the present without judgment, gradually releasing long-held tension. By doing this inner work, we learn that time alone does not heal wounds. Conscious effort and understanding do. When we acknowledge what hurt us, we reclaim the power to shape our future. Dr. Gabor Mate underscores that because trauma is the wound inside us, healing is always possible. If we believed that trauma was the event itself, the war, the abuse, the neglected childhood, then nothing could ever undo history. But if trauma is how we carry that event inside, how it shaped our stress responses and self-perception, then by addressing that inner wound, we can begin to recover. This concept provides hope to individuals who've suffered greatly. It means we are not doomed by our past. Through vulnerability, recognition, and often guided support, we can move beyond rigid defenses. We can reconnect with emotions suppressed for decades and rediscover flexibility, curiosity, and love. To move toward a healthier society, we must also question our assumptions about what's normal. Dr. Mate's book, The Myth of Normal, invites us to consider that what we often accept as normal, a culture of stress, isolation, and relentless ambition, may be fundamentally harmful. Perhaps a normal life should include accessible emotional support, affirming relationships, opportunities to play and explore without constant evaluation, and the presence of elders who pass on empathy and life lessons. If we embraced these values, if we redesigned education, healthcare, and community life around human emotional needs, we might see fewer broken adults and fewer children forced to adapt to hostile environments. This does not mean eradicating all challenges. Pain, loss, and disappointment are part of life. But how we handle these inevitable struggles matters. Without guidance, a child losing a grandparent or witnessing parental conflict might internalize fear and shame. With compassionate support, that same loss becomes an integrated memory, a place to learn about love, impermanence, and empathy. Our job as a community is not to shield children from every hardship, but to ensure they never have to navigate adversity alone. As we learn more about trauma, our collective knowledge can inform policy and inspire innovation in therapy, education, and community design. We can support parents, ensuring they receive help rather than judgment when family life becomes overwhelming. We can train teachers, pediatricians, and social workers to recognize signs of trauma and address it early. We can invest in mental health services that consider the whole person, their story, and their environment, rather than only the symptoms they present. We can create mentorship and intergenerational programs, ensuring that young and old share experiences and wisdom. We can build a world where acknowledging vulnerability is as natural as breathing, and where seeking help is not a stigma, but a strength. In the final analysis, trauma is neither rare nor extraordinary. It can be found lurking behind countless personal stories. What differs now is that we have the science, the language, and the frameworks to understand how deeply early wounds shape adult lives. With that understanding comes the responsibility to act, to rewrite our narratives about health and illness, and to place emotional well-being at the heart of how we measure social progress. If trauma is the hidden wound, then healing lies in making it visible, acknowledging it openly, listening with compassion, and crafting environments that support human vulnerability and growth. By taking these steps, we free ourselves from the tyranny of the past. We remember that who we are need not be defined by what happened to us, but by our willingness to face it, learn from it, and emerge with greater empathy and resilience. We have the tools, we have the knowledge, and now, more than ever, we have a reason to hope that the future can be different. Thank you for watching Think Lab. If you found this video meaningful, please like and subscribe.